Hey, I'm Doug, and I have an opportunity to catch up with Kathy Troccoli, a name that you may remember. I was watching the Everything Changes video last night with my wife and just kind of like doing the groove thing. But for the official introduction, Kathy's 40-year career includes 24 recordings, 18 #1 hits, 2 Grammy nominations, 19 Dove Award nominations, and 2 Dove Awards. Plus, she's just an amazing person. Kathy, thank you for taking time.
Thank you, Doug. You watched the Everything Changes video. It is really fun. It is so fun. When I meet people like lately, or I'm with friends, they're like, yeah, she's a Christian singer, but she had a pop hit. And then everybody's like, oh, I remember it. Meanwhile, it's like 30 years ago, you know.
But for us, it was like yesterday, right?
I know. And I realize sometimes they're talking to 20 somethings and they're like, it was in 91. And they're going, well, I wasn't even in the womb.
Yeah, I feel it. Well, I'm hard. I don't even really know how to put into emotion what we're fixing to talk about, as they say in the South. But it's a topic that needs light shed on it, the topic of suicide. And by way of introduction, I thought the best thing to do is something else that I watched repeatedly last night was your new song, Finally Free. So for those that haven't, we'll give them the opportunity right now to experience Kathy Troccoli's new song. Here is Finally Free.
What did you need? We gave you our all. We tried to bring peace. It wouldn't be here, but we will believe. Now you shine in the glory of heavenly light. The pain is all lifted, it's no longer night. So sing with the angels and run through the streets and ride with the horses. You're finally free.
So, wow, Kathy, I was watching that with my wife again last night, and she was just so struck. We were both so struck by it. I know that there's a story as it relates to suicide in your family as well as mine. What was the inspiration for that song?
Well, first I want to say, Doug, you mentioned 40 years. I cannot believe, and I'm so thankful that I still get to sing and speak and minister after 40 years. I'm just so grateful to continue to be able to be making music. And I've written about so many things because a lot of times my writing, well, most times it's from real life situations. My Life Is in Your Hands was a big song I wrote when my mother had breast cancer. She ended up going to heaven at 61, but just real life things. So to answer your question about Finally Free, it was during COVID. And I was brought up in Long Island, New York, Italians, relatives all around us. And my childhood playmates were Rico and Carmine, not to stereotype, but they actually, I'm left-handed, but Carmine taught me right-handed baseball. So I do things ambidextrously. And Rico, just my closest friends through childhood. Well, Rico's about a year younger than me. And during COVID, his 21-year-old son shot himself. And they found him when they entered the basement of their house. And I obviously everything was shut down because of COVID, and I couldn't fly there to be with him, but I called him. And he was just obviously sobbing and distraught. And he had a lot of that, what could I have done? A lot of that guilt. And, his son had suffered a lot with just his purpose. He was just trying to find his way, as a lot of people who take their life. It's mental illness, it's drugs, you can make the list go on and on. And I hung up the phone and I thought, this kid from when he was a little boy just suffered so. And there was a part of me that said, God, by your mercies, he's finally free. Obviously, you wanted him free here. And I started penning the words, and then I shelved it. And 6 months later, he said, "Cuz, did you finish writing that song?" And I was like, "Oh, my word," because I've been writing so much. And I just closed the door in my office and started writing, and this song came out. And I wrote it, Doug, to express the questions and the sorrow, and yet the redemption of God's mercy and grace that is always there. I find that people don't want to necessarily talk about this subject or write about this subject because there's such a nebulous kind of where are they and what happened, and people come running with theological answers, and sometimes people just need comfort, Doug, you know?
No, I agree with that totally. For full disclosure, my mother chose the same exit as your cousin, and that was very hard for our family to deal with, needless to say.
How old was she, Doug?
She was in her 60s.
Wow.
She had MS for a while, and she was struggling with some issues, but we thought that she was in a good place. She had moved out from California to Tennessee. She was a block and a half down from us for the last 3 years of her life.
Wow.
And you know, she chose that. Unfortunately for our story, my son was the one that found her. So a lot of times when I think about the repercussions, I'm sure that was never my mother's intention. I think she wanted me to find her, but it worked out that way. Ever since then, though, I've always felt and always said God puts us through things to share with others when we're a little bit on the other side. And as I started sharing my story, and as you well know, it's impacted so many people. That's what touched me and so many people within the Christian music community, within my circle of friends that I had no idea were like, oh, my cousin, my general manager's father, other artists, all these connections. Sadly, suicide has hit so many people.
Well, and it's the kind of thing where it's so hard to understand and so dark that I think people just kind of tend to not want to talk about it. It involves so many emotions, like I said, and so many questions. And I've sung obviously all over the world, but I remember a certain time and season in my life where I was at Women of Faith. I was in arenas of 20,000 women for 8 years. And I'll never forget, Doug, you know, there used to be long lines waiting at the merchandise table. And I can't tell you how many women hugged me and whispered, Kathy, my husband took his life. A lot of teenagers, a lot of children, and sobbing, going, but, you know, I don't know where they are. And, you know, they're telling me the word says, and obviously I honor the word of God, but there's this part that I would see these people making God's decisions about eternity. And I'd whisper in their ear, mercy triumphs over judgment. That's what the word says. Yeah. And they look at me with these tears in their eyes. And I said, you know, I say, you hold on to God. You're grieving like this. You love this person. Can you imagine the heart of God? And Doug, when I wrote this song, I'm not talking about the person who goes in and shoots his whole family and then takes his, this is from a place of what you and I are talking about, where it's whoa, this beloved, cherished, you know, person that's been fighting sickness or drugs or depression or anger or bipolar or whatever it is. There's so many people that go through stuff. And so my cousin Rico, not only has he gotten closer to the Lord as I've kind of ministered to him through this, but he told me, cuz I visit the cemetery every Sunday and I play your song. And it comforts me about my son. And I want to just tell you listeners, yeah, it's on all streaming platforms. There's a lyric video with it on YouTube. but yeah, if you have gone through it, if you know someone who's gone through it, please, it's in fact, if I could read something, this just came in this morning on my social media.
Mm-hmm.
A bereavement counselor, Doug. She said, as a bereavement counselor, I can't count the times I have shared a link to your song, Finally Free. Our family today plans to play it. One family today plans to play it at the memorial service for a young man who died by suicide. Thank you for making meaning out of loss. That is the true work of grief. Jesus modeled for us in the most profound way. So appreciate you. And I just teared up going, look at that. You know, I wrote this song for Rico's son, but it's traveling around the world in the sense of comfort. And even what you talked about, Doug, it gives people the freedom to uncover and talk about it.
Well, I think that's the tool of the enemy, is to keep things in the darkness. So to be able to shine the light on a subject that, of course, we're not comfortable about. I mean, my wife was so moved by the visuals. We watched the lyric video that you mentioned on YouTube, and just the imagery and the horses and everything that you had there just, you know, moved us to tears. And she said, that is such a powerful song. Now, my wife has an aversion to grief, so she said I probably wouldn't listen to it a lot.
Yeah,
but
no, yeah.
When need be, and I think that's what it's about. And so again, kudos to be able to talk about that. As we've shared my story with my mom and everything, it's just trying to let people know. I know where my mom is. I know my mom's with Jesus. I'm not worried about that, but I know that's easier said than done for others. So I echo the sentiment there. I also learned something I didn't realize about the power of the semicolon.
Yeah, that's so good.
I didn't even know that was a thing, but like the puzzle piece can be the little logo for autism, the semicolon is for suicide awareness, the idea that it's not a period at the end of a sentence, but a semicolon, and the idea of getting the message out and encouraging those of us that are left to love on those of us around us. I mean, anytime we lose somebody, isn't that a reminder about how short life is, no matter how they go?
Well, absolutely. And also, especially nowadays, but you know, God never, we're not in the garden. He wanted us to be in the garden. We are not in the garden. When my mom passed and I spoke at her memorial, I turned to a lot of unbelievers and I said, I am so thankful that when I met the Lord at 20, it wasn't like he went, hey, you know, you're gonna be walking down Main Street at Disneyland and see this big castle and balloons. And he said, you're gonna go through it here. And it gets really, really dark. And even in the word, some mighty people of God, it got so dark, they wanted to take their life. We are behind the veil. We are behind the veil. And that's why, you know, the Lord says, love me and love people. And so I'm just trying to do my part. I know that I'm in love with him, but I'm trying to do my part more than ever to love, to do the Great Commission. And if that's singing about suicide or singing about these hard things, plus his love and mercy, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it and continue to do it as long as I have this voice in my throat.
And then I guess you're connected with agencies and organizations for suicide awareness as it relates to the song. And
well, I'm actually coming down to 3 different organizations. I have people want to give, golightyourworld.org. I have a nonprofit ministry, and as of now, we're giving $5,000 to, it's come down to 3 organizations because there's so many, thank God, that I'm going to give proceeds from this song if you give to the ministry, and especially for the song. But 988 is 3 really simple numbers you can call if you are wanting to speak to someone, if you're in the throes of that. But I want to say, having been a woman that's gone through my own periods of darkness, I look back now and I think, you know, I can't, it's a new day. If I would have believed the things about myself, other people, life that I thought about so many times, as many of your listeners have, I would have never known there was a new day. You know, Jesus died on the cross. It was horrific. It was dark.
Yeah.
And then Saturday was silent. It was silent. And so that's what a lot of people feel who are just about to take their life.
Mhm.
Where the heck are you?
Mhm.
And then Sunday came and he rose from the dead. And that's what I want to say to your listeners who are suffering with depression or anything else. There's going to be a new day. You hold on to his promises.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to be respectful of the time. Is there anything else that we want to cover before we wrap?
No, I just want to say I'm putting out songs. They're called Songs and Sparks, Doug's, where I'm speaking. And then there's a video. I'm going to probably try to put out about 6 songs a year. And you can find those on YouTube or follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm doing that, still doing some concerts. So if you want to just sign up to my email list at kathytroccoli.com, I'll keep you abreast on all that stuff. But thank you for the opportunity.
No, appreciate the time, truly.